types of business structures. We are going to go over specifically three, and these are the three main ones that you will see in your classrooms and probably in life as well. Sole proprietorship, and I should actually say slash partnership. So if I'm going at it alone versus going at it with a couple of my best friends, or I always recommend not to go into business with your friends. So a couple of other people that believe in my business idea. And then there's a limited liability company, which I always recommend, especially for startups. And then there are corporations. So I'm going to talk about the differences by mainly just highlighting the advantages and disadvantages of each of the three. So on the right side, I'm going to have the disadvantages, and on the left side, I'm going to have the advantages of each. So for a sole proprietorship, let's try and use a real life example here. So let's say I'm going to start a company. Let's say the company is, I'm a big fan of Eminem. I think he's the best rapper to ever live, and if you disagree, good, because you're probably going to remember this example a lot more. So I believe Eminem is the greatest rapper ever, and I've decided that there's a business opportunity there. I can sell Eminem merchandise because I'm not sure if anyone else is really doing that, and sell it for a profit. I mean, he's still alive. He's still going to be relevant. He has a strong fan base. So if I sell his merchandise, every time he comes out with an album, I'm probably going to sell a lot of merchandise. And every time, he's not coming out with an album, I probably just have to do my own marketing. So I'm going to jump on that. I see a gap in there, and I'm going to open up my own Eminem merchandise store. I'm trying to get a bunch of people to support my idea, but no one else believes in it because realistically, they don't really see enough interest in people, especially where we live. People don't really like Eminem, and people, they're just afraid that all the Biggie and Tupac fans are going to destroy our store, so no one wants any parts of it. I decide I don't really have a lot of money. I'm going to open up a sole proprietorship, all right? And the advantages of this is that I have a lot of autonomy. Just like I decided to go out on my own to start this crazy idea, no one else believed in me, I get to do whatever I want. Well, within reason, obviously. Not as many rules to follow, and when I say not as many rules, I mean government rules, and not a lot of people setting guidelines for what I'm supposed to do on a day-to-day basis. This is my idea. Everyone else thinks it's pure rubbish, so there aren't a lot of rules limiting how I get to pursue my dream. And it's inexpensive. Again, remember that I decided to go on this wild goose chase for a company, and no one else wants to support me. I have to go at it alone. I probably don't have a lot of money, so this is probably going to be my best resort. Those are three key advantages for sole proprietorships, and you can easily file one tomorrow if you want. It's very, very quick and short process. That's probably another advantage, but there are problems, all right? It's almost too good to be true to be able to start up a company like the Eminem merchandise store and just get away with this scot-free. So with the sole proprietorship, the problems are liability. When we talked about accounting, we said there were two main assumptions: the economic assumption, which is what I'm going to talk about, and the monetary value assumption. Now, the monetary value, Lord knows how much it's going to cost for me to actually start this business, but the economic side of things, I'm only supposed to include transactions that pertain to this company. Now, let's say Eminem hears about this store and decides this is ridiculous. He never told me about this store. I'm going to sue him for everything he's worth. He can easily come in at any time, sue me, because the United States is an overly litigated society. People can sue for anything. Biggie fans could come in and sue me and take everything I have. So it makes sense for them to take everything the company has. That's fine. That's the company's liability. But with a sole proprietorship, they can come after things that I personally own. So before I told you, you have to separate your personal from your business. When it comes to liability with a sole proprietorship, everything you own is up for grabs, all right? You have no protection. And also, another disadvantage is raising funds. You're going to have to go into banks and tell them, I want to open up an M&M merchandise store. A lot of them are going to want to laugh at you. A lot of them are just, not going to take you seriously, just like your family and friends probably won't take you very seriously. Or they might, I don't know what people think out there, but whatever. He's the best rapper ever is my point. And it's going to be difficult to convince everyone else of that. You could just go try have this conversation with your friends later and just imagine how difficult it would be to raise funds. So those are disadvantages of a sole proprietorship. Now, if you don't want to go that route, limited liability. So remember, the liability was the main risk of opening up a sole proprietorship. We have a limited liability company solve that problem. So let's say I made a little bit more money, and it's not a whole lot more expensive than a sole proprietorship, just a little bit more expensive to set up a limited liability company, which I absolutely recommend for people going out on their own. And the main advantage here is that you get treated as a separate entity. So just by setting up a limited liability company, if Eminem decides to sue you and take you for everything you own personally and that your business owns, he can only go after everything that your business owns, which is very important, okay? Because you might have a nice Toyota that you're trying to protect, and he doesn't get to take that because that's your property. It's not an asset of your company, okay? And the autonomy, you get to keep that. That's another advantage. And to me, if you're going to set up your own business, you wanted to do whatever you wanted. You didn't want to be told what to do, and you get to keep that with a limited liability company. And also the taxation flexibility. I underline flexibility here just because with different states, there are different rules, but usually the rules are pretty unified. But I want to be careful saying you basically only get to get taxed once. A lot of states, your income is the same as the company's income, but it's something that differs from state to state. And that's my disadvantage. And some people don't include it as a disadvantage, but I personally do, just because I like to dream big. If I'm going to work for a company, I hope that company explodes and becomes a multinational. If I'm going to start up my own company, I'm going to have the same aspirations. I wanted to at least expand throughout the country, and if the laws are different pertaining to how I filed my business from state to state, that's a little annoying in my perspective. Some people don't think it's a big deal. I personally think it's a big deal, so I've included it in one of the disadvantages. And also raising funds. Raising funds is still going to be difficult for limited liability companies because you're still standing on your own too. Just because you're filed a different way doesn't mean banks all of a sudden like your M&M project idea a lot more. It's going to be up to you and your tenacity to be able to get the money for your project, and hopefully you're able to find customers that want to buy some M&M merchandise and raise funds naturally that way. But if it's an emergency and you need to go to a bank, you still have to do your due diligence, and it can be very, very difficult. The last type of company is a corporation, which we see a lot of. So when you trade on the stock market, those are public companies, and the advantages to them, again, the limited liability. I could be a shareholder for a company, but if the company they're unable to pay their bills and have to be liquidated, no one's going to come after me. I technically own a share of the company, but no one's going to come after me for my personal property. So that is the advantage of a corporation. Ease of funding. It's incredibly easy. Not always the wisest strategy. There are times where you could actually time it and it could be beneficial to you, but if I want to raise some money, it's a lot easier for a bank to take me seriously if I'm a corporation and they're able to look at my financial statements, because there's a track record there that I have to keep up with. And they know that my accounting is honest. They know that what they're looking at, they could rely on. It's a lot more difficult to deceive a bank if you're a corporation, just because you have certain guidelines that you have to follow, especially with the SEC. So raising money from a bank is going to be easier. At the same time, I'm able to issue shares. So whenever we purchase shares on the stock market, that's the secondary market. The company doesn't really get the money. They don't get the benefit of the stocks we buy. So if I bought stocks of Microsoft right now, it wouldn't be Microsoft wouldn't be getting any more money. Someone else that owned that share would be getting money. How Microsoft would get money is if they issued more shares in the primary market and someone bought those fresh shares that have never been owned before. And they can issue as much as they want, but obviously you have to control it because you don't want to dilute the value of each share. Ease of transfer. I just mentioned shares. If I own 6 shares of a company, if you wanted to own it, all you had to do is give me money for those 6 shares and you would easily own 6 shares. So the ease of transfer of ownership That's another advantage of a corporation. Till liquidation do us part. The company is going to be alive so long as it can pay its bills and generate a profit. It's a perpetual entity. It does not die until it cannot pay its bills anymore. Some disadvantages: double taxation. So once you tax a business, which that's your standard corporate taxes, and you're probably hearing a lot of it on the news right now, there's another taxation that happens. So if they ever pay out dividends to their investors or shareholders, that's also taxed. So that's a disadvantage of corporations. The principal agent conflict, which in my opinion is probably the main detractor from a corporation. I don't really have a problem with any of the other ones. Double taxation seems fair to me. Principal agent conflict comes in play when I own shares of a company, but I don't really get to make decisions at the end of the day. I could vote for people that make decisions, but they may act in their best interest, and their best interest may not serve me. So you can see how that may become a problem, and that's the principal agent conflict. People, CEOs, a management team, are making decisions that makes their bonuses healthy, but the dividends that I'm getting as a result of being an owner of the company, they're not reflective of the success of the company. Someone else is getting to benefit from the hard work of the company, and that's just not fair. If you're investing, you're probably looking for capital yield, which is that your shares grow in value, or you're looking for dividend yield to grow, which is that you keep your shares. Well, let me go back a little bit. Your capital yield, your shares grow in value, and you could decide to transfer the ownership of those shares so you're able to claim the benefit there. But if you want to hold on to those shares, your dividend, which is your passive income, so long as you own those shares, you want the company to continue to supply you with income on a regular basis. And if someone in the management team is making their bonuses go up while your dividends are going down, it's obviously uncomfortable. And then there's the hassle and pressure. I just call the stress of going public. It's expensive. Again, there's the primary market and the secondary market. A lot of people confuse the two, but going into the primary market is a very complicated thing. Someone has to do your underwriting for your shares. There's valuations that have to happen. People have to be paid commissions. You have to actually do a very good job of reflecting to the public that your company is worth anything. And the expectation is not only from the company and investors, but also from the SEC. All of a sudden, you're held to stricter guidelines. You have to do things a certain way to remain public, because you don't just get to sell anything you want to people. People have to be able to rely on certain things from you, that you're telling the truth when you say you make this amount of money. So if I decide to buy some of your shares, I know that you're acting responsibly. You have to tell me in annual reports of what your plan is, and you're a little bit restricted that way because, well, I don't know if it's a bad restriction, but you're restricted in that you can't just do